I wanted to add, what women are looking for is equality in all aspects of life and functioning. Yes, equality.
So let me just say two things, or three. The first I would say is there has historically been a male model or an image both of who God is, how God acts, and how the organizations that help people come to know God are organized. And I think this has been under serious contest or serious discussion for a very long time. I met with one of the members of the commission. She came to see me, and she's done some writing. She's the commission on deacons in the church and on the possible return of women deacons in the church. And I use the word return. There's evidence until somewhere, perhaps as late as the 1300s, in some local churches, there were women deacons. So we can't, we say all we want, we can say, oh, that's not true, it's in the liturgical texts, it's in local historical writings, it's in bishops' letters, it's in bishops' ordination of women. Women were ordained to be deacon in some of the different local churches. So, the question you raise is a very important one, and it begs a second one, and that is the question of authority. And I think, Tom, you alluded to this. When authority gets too tied to power, then, and power is identified with one gender or the other, then it becomes an opportunity for exclusion. And so I think we have to, whether you know any of this, you can read it if you don't believe what I'm saying, but I've just been reading this recently to inform myself because of the woman who came to meet with me, who's a member of the commission that actually, you go back, wasn't just Pope Francis established the commission. Benedict talked about the commission, so this is the Pope Benedict. So it's not something just with Pope Francis. This is something that's been, for a number of years, has been in discussion. And it does raise the question. But there are, the other thing here, there are dioceses that have, there are vicar generals who have, I'm not mistaken. Chancellors, the chancellors who have been women. And chancellors have a very important role in the diocese. In part, the chancellor can determine who gets to see the bishop. It's fascinating. In India, I went to a meeting, and the religious sisters run more than 600 hospitals and dispensaries. And I was at a meeting on healthcare. I was there to talk about the U.S. Catholic. I worked for the bishops at the time here in the United States, and I was to talk to them about approaches to HIV and AIDS as a Catholic church. And I witnessed there, the bishops were actually listening to the women. They were, I'm not going to use the word afraid, but those women had power. They really had power in a good sense, because they were the ones who were in touch with the people on a daily basis. The bishops that I witnessed that were present, the 6 or 8 bishops, they were in tune with those sisters. So it was very interesting, very different dynamic. So I think, and in fact, if we took women out of the equation of the church, we could close most of the buildings that we call Sunday worship sites or churches because of the place of women. The women, I think of the image of the constancy of women in their faith that they bring to the world. So other things, Tom, maybe Gary, you'd like to say something?
Sure, Gary.
I think we're at a crossroads right now, and it's not going to depend on any single pope. It's not going to depend on any single thinker in the church. We are at a crossroads where we have to make a determination. What are the essentials of our faith? And what things have we added that in fact are no longer useful? Do we need to rethink the way that the structure of the church so that people all are participating at all levels to be able to bring the faith of Jesus alive today? I would hope St. Francis, in his time, very interesting. There's a little book that was written a few years back by a specialist. St. Francis took women, lay people, young people with him when he went to preach, or they strung along, and they become part of the preaching. So it wasn't just the preacher, it was now 2 or 3 or 6 or 8 people, and each of them had something to offer to the preaching. So they were all involved in community, because this is what, and I think Pope Francis is talking about this when he says we are all missionaries. We're all missionaries. And then we try, what does that mean? I think that's where we're at now. We're at a struggle point. What does that mean?
Just one thing with that. The organizational mind of the Franciscans was Clare, not Francis.
Yeah.
Clare never left her monastery, never left Assisi, but popes kept coming to her to ask for her advice. Powers in many ways, and that's not an excuse for what has been going on. But I do think some of the most influential people in the church today are not popes, bishops, or general ministers of the Franciscan order. But all people, and especially women, as you said. As you know, I used to work for Catholic Health Association. My boss was Sister Carol Keehan, who made bishops say, "Yes, sister. Yes, sister. Yes, sister."
There's something inside that needs to change. This is not just the Catholic Church. It's not just religion. It's in the public sector. It's in working. It's everywhere. Something needs to. I read a book years ago. It just came to mind again. 1979. I was in Chicago, 100 years ago, and I just picked up a book because someone recommended it to me. And I do that. People recommend, so sometimes I'll pick it up and then I read 10 pages and put it down. The book was written by a German woman, and it was called Kiss Sleeping Beauty Goodbye. It just turned my world upside down. All those fairy tales about the woman being served by the man, the great prince meeting, and all these things, they're all about a vision of hierarchy that just doesn't work because it denigrates women. It robs them of their creativity. And I think that, I don't know if this book is even around anymore. I went looking for it last year just to see if I could find it, to read it again, see if I can learn something from it. But Kiss Sleeping Beauty Goodbye was the name of the book, and maybe you'll find it online somewhere.
The only thing I would add is there's no automatic answers. I really think it's a painful question. I think the male hierarchy of a church needs to apologize to women for the lack of voice they've had, the times we've not listened to them, the times we've been afraid of what they're going to say. It's caused tremendous pain in the church, and it's going to be a gradual process. It's going to take tremendous patience to see what the Holy Spirit creates out of these very conversations. I don't know that the paradigm of sacrament needs to change, but the understanding we have of how we let women help us and we help them lead is a critical question. And I go back to what I said earlier. Your current education, what you're learning in women's studies and biology and everything else are going to inform this tremendously. And I would love for you guys to be part of the solution, part of listening to what's the Holy Spirit up to here. How can we get that equal voice? Because so far, the power's all been in the males. I mean, it's really, you can say things about religious communities. Women are leading huge corporations in the 12th century, essentially. So in some ways, we were so far ahead, but then there's too much fear in those who are at the top right now about all this. And so we just need your voice. We need you to ask good questions. We need you to talk, teach us. And then let's see where the Holy Spirit leads this. It doesn't have to be a change in the sacramental paradigm, like I said, but it definitely has to be equal power. That's not an option.